Enterprise networks are built like fortresses, engineered to block unauthorized access at the border. But an adaptable threat doesn't break the wall. It flows right through the microscopic gaps in the perimeter. Despite decades of advancement in network architecture, the primary vector for enterprise cyber attacks hasn't changed. It is still email. And this vulnerability remains wide open, even as organizations pour billions of dollars and countless operational hours into defensive infrastructure. For years, the centerpiece of that infrastructure has been the Secure Email Gateway, or SEG. It serves as the primary perimeter control node, a digital border crossing for inbound and outbound traffic. But the underlying architecture of a gateway is designed for a specific type of inspection. It evaluates an email at a single point in time, right at the perimeter. This operational model creates a blind spot for threats that evolve after they pass the gate. The point of failure has transitioned from the network edge to the individual inbox. We are seeing a shift in the attack lifecycle that requires us to look past the point of delivery. This diagram shows the standard deployment of a secure email gateway. It functions strictly as a pre-delivery checkpoint. Data packets hit this central node before they are allowed into the internal network. At this checkpoint, the system runs through a checklist. First, it analyzes incoming traffic patterns to filter out bulk, known spam. Next, it scans file attachments. It looks for specific, documented sequences of malicious code, known as signatures. Finally, it evaluates embedded URLs, checking those links against established threat intelligence databases to see if the domains have a history of malicious activity. This entire security modding rests on a single assumption, that incoming threats will carry static, historically recognizable markers.
Against rigid, known threats, this checkpoint is highly effective. But if an attack lacks those known indicators, the gateway is mathematically incapable of identifying it. A new class of threats utilizes legitimate infrastructure to avoid detection. The first pathway is advanced phishing. This bypasses traditional domain checks by launching from accounts that have already been compromised. The attacker injects their payload into a pre-existing trusted email thread, complete with personalized details that the gateway sees as normal conversation. The second pathway is business email compromise, or BEC. A BEC attack is purely social engineering. There is zero malware attached. There are no suspicious links for the gateway to flag. The attacker impersonates an executive or a trusted vendor. They manipulate the recipient into authorizing a payment or sharing data. Because the text of the email is standard corporate communication, it sails right through. The third pathway is the targeted malware campaign. Rather than using a known virus, attackers use polymorphic files. These files alter their underlying code structure with every single delivery. When the gateway checks its static signature database, it finds no match. To further blind the gateway's internal sandbox analysis, attackers will encrypt the attachment or lock it behind a password provided in the email text, preventing the automated scanner from ever looking inside. By deliberately stripping away the static indicators that gateways look for, these three vectors blend into legitimate enterprise traffic. When we trace these stealth vectors on this flowchart, we can clearly see the architectural failures of the perimeter model.
The attacks pass cleanly through the spam, signature, and URL filters without triggering a single alert. The first blind spot is a reliance on limited detection models. Because threat intelligence relies on historical data, attackers simply outpace the updates. They rapidly rotate their infrastructure, spinning up newly created, short-lived domains that haven't existed long enough to end up on a block list. The second blind spot is a lack of contextual awareness. A gateway analyzes each message in isolation. It has no memory of user behavior, communication patterns, or organizational relationships. It cannot spot the subtle anomaly of a familiar contact asking for an unusual financial transfer. The third blind spot is the difficulty in interpreting social engineering. Network perimeter technology is built to parse code. It cannot assess human intent, cognitive bias, or psychological manipulation. The gateway executes a limited mathematical analysis. This process lacks the tools to assess human intent or detect shifting variables during the attack lifecycle. The active phase of a modern attack occurs after the email has landed in the user's inbox.
This split-screen comparison shows delayed payloads in action. Watch what happens here on the left. The gateway scans a static URL. It reads as benign. But over on the right, inside the inbox, the attack lifecycle continues. After the email is safely delivered, the attacker dynamically changes the destination of that same URL to a malicious payload. Think about how marketers operate. They use email service providers with advanced tracking to monitor exactly how users engage with a campaign long after it lands in the inbox. Security professionals must apply that exact same visibility. We need post-delivery tracking to observe how users interact with links and documents in real time, right when they click. And that click is the critical variable.
Multi-stage attacks require human interaction to execute. The data proves this reliance on user action. 79% of account takeovers originate with a phishing email that a user engaged with. A point-in-time perimeter inspection fails because it cannot protect against a state change that only activates at the exact moment a human interacts with it. This topology shows an architecture that moves past the perimeter. Modern email security requires wrapping the inbox and the user in dynamic, overlapping operational layers. The first layer is advanced threat detection. By integrating behavioral analysis and machine learning, the system maps out the baseline communication patterns across the entire organization. When a request deviates from that historical context, it flags the anomaly instantly. The second layer is continuous monitoring. Instead of checking a link once at the border, the system tracks user interactions with links and attachments in real time, catching delayed payloads the second they activate. The third layer enforces strong authentication. Using protocols like DMARC and Sender Policy Framework, the system rigorously verifies senders to block domain spoofing before it ever reaches the user. The final layer is the user. Because human action is the ultimate execution endpoint, continuous training and practical phishing simulations are required to fortify that endpoint against manipulation. The threat landscape has moved on from malicious code to exploited trust. Closing the visibility gap requires building a continuously monitoring, context-aware ecosystem.